Thank you. Thank you, Christina. Good evening, good morning, and greetings of the day. We extend a warm welcome to the FICCI ACYPL Town Hall on Insights into India's Pandemic Response. FICCI and ACYPL have been exchange partners since the year 2015, and we are happy to welcome thousands of our alumni of the programs to this town hall today. The purpose of the town hall series by ACYPL is to share experiences and discuss important issues across countries, communities, and stakeholders to exchange stories of courage and learn from each other's best practices. This is very relevant today when the whole world is affected by a pandemic, and we all have lessons to teach and learn from each other. Today's town hall focuses on India's response to the pandemic, the role of state and non-state actors, and the private sector, the special role that it plays in alleviating the effects of the COVID-19 pandemic, not to forget the role that civil society plays and volunteers play in alleviating the pandemic's effects. I'm happy to welcome our eminent speakers for today. We have an impressive panel of leaders, influencers, and decision makers who will share their perspective with us over this 1-hour town hall. It's an honor to introduce, first of all, Brigadier Dr. Arvind Lal, who's the Executive Chairman of Dr. Lal Path Labs and Chair of FICCI's Swasth Bharat Task Force. Dr. Lal is a pioneer in laboratory services in India and leads one of the best laboratory chains in Asia. Brigadier Lal is also a Padma Shri awardee of the Government of India and the first civilian doctor to be granted an honorary brigadier's rank in the Armed Forces Medical Services. Our second panel speaker today is Mr. Gaurav Bhatia, the national spokesperson for the Bharatiya Janata Party. We'll wait for Christina, if you could. Yeah, thank you. Mr. Bhatia is the national spokesperson of Bharatiya Janata Party, the BJP. He's here to represent the voice of the government. Mr. Bhatia is a senior advocate in the Supreme Court of India. Joining us today, sir. Our third speaker for today is Ms. Priyanka Chaturvedi, a member of parliament in the upper house or the Rajya Sabha of the Indian Parliament. Ms. Chaturvedi is also the deputy leader of Shiv Sena Party. And very specially, she is also an ACYPL alumni from the 2016 group of ACYPL. Last but not the least, we have with us Professor Rajeev Gowda. Professor Gowda is a former member of parliament, and he is currently the chairman of the research wing of the Indian National Congress Party. Professor Gowda has been a Carnegie Council Global Ethics Fellow and a professor at the Indian Institute of Management in India. He has also founded the Resurgent India Trust and works on youth empowerment. As our moderator for today, we are proud to welcome Ms. Angellica Aribam, who's an ACYPL alumni from the 2020 group. Angellica is the founder of Fem First Foundation, which is an NGO working to promote women's political leadership in India. She was named one of Forbes India's 30 under 30 in the year 2017. So welcome all of you once again to this panel. And before handing over to Angellica, I would just like to share the program flow for today, which is on the screen right now. So this is a 1-hour town hall, which will be started by Angellica with a brief welcome and introduction into the topic for today. There will be short introductory remarks by each of the eminent speakers. This will be followed by a moderated question and answer session by Angellica. And we will also be taking some audience questions through emails. And the emails are just coming up on the screen. So if you have any question specifically to any panelist, please let us know. And if it's a general question, again, please send it to us. These are the two email IDs on the screen right now, which is pdeanna@acypl.org and sonali.mitra@ficci.com. Once again, I welcome everyone, and Angellica, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Sushma. Before I open the floor for discussions, I would like to thank all the viewers who have joined in both from India and the United States. Today's ACYPL Town Hall is an attempt for us to understand the full picture of India's response to the pandemic. We have just seen a tragic second wave wherein India experienced severe shortages of medical oxygen and ICU beds, leading to massive number of deaths. And now there is a fear of a possible third wave. Economically, India has witnessed a challenging year. Many Indians have lost livelihoods, unemployment remains high, female labor force participation has shrunk. At this juncture, recovery depends on how well we are prepared for the future and how successfully we vaccinate our population. Today's discussion is about our learnings both from the first wave and the second wave, and how do we go forward from here. And what are the priority areas for the government, the civil society, the public and private sector, as well as the health sector. We have representatives both from the opposition parties and the government, and also a health expert who have joined us today. So let me begin with Dr. Lal and then go alphabetically to the other panelists. So Dr. Lal, please share your thoughts on how the overall response of India has been to the pandemic, specifically with regard to the health sector.
Thank you, Angelica, and good morning to everybody in America, and good evening to other people, especially in India. And I would start with my general remark, and that would be that the pandemics have haunted human beings ever since the hunter-gatherer days. And we all have heard about the Spanish flu, which took its toll 1918 to 1919 and infected about 500 million people. And about 1/3 of the world's population at that time was killed in 50 million, much more than the First World War. In India, the Spanish flu was known as the Bombay fever, which killed about 14 million people, or 6% of the population at that time. And there was a poet who wrote in Hindi by the name of Nirala, who said that our river Ganga was swollen with dead bodies and there was not enough wood to cremate the bodies. So cut to the present, the pandemic has infected about 195 million people all over the world in 220 countries, and killed about 4 million, and India witnessed about 31.5 million cases, or about 0.4 million deaths, or 10% of the global deaths due to COVID. And the mortality rate in India is supposed to be 1.3%, amongst the lowest in the world. So no country has been able to eliminate COVID-19 yet, and not even the developed countries like USA and UK. In fact, many international public health experts and countries like Singapore have already accepted the fact that COVID-19 may never disappear completely and shall reach a state of coexistence known as an endemic state, pretty much like the HIV and the hepatitis viruses. India mounted a very strong response with the multi-pronged efforts to contain the infection in the first wave. That included the lockdown and extensive 3 T's: test, track, treat, or isolate, and a strong messaging on the COVID appropriate behavior. But we were not all that prepared for the second wave and witnessed the exponential rise in number of cases, which overwhelmed the already strained system. A false sense of normalcy crept in after the first wave died down, and India went into a mode of complete unlocking to revive the economy. Masses gathered for political rallies and religious events, and people became complacent about the basic preventive measures. But these are the perils of democracy, as we have seen across the globe, whether it is people in UK storming pubs and cheering in the Wimbledon championships, or Republican Americans refusing to get vaccinated. In a democracy, citizens have the power to choose. However, in a pandemic, public health has to take precedence over politics. Saving lives must be prioritized and balanced with saving livelihoods, and citizens have to actively take part in this war against COVID. India is already preparing for the potential third wave. We hope it doesn't come. Augmenting the health infrastructure, calibrating, unlocking, and strategizing, focusing now on the T3V strategy, that is test, track, treat, and vaccinate, or isolate and isolate. vaccinate, and skilling of a new cadre of 100,000 COVID frontline workers. As a developing country, the economic impact of COVID in India has been huge, but IMF's GDP growth projection for India at 9.5 is still pretty high, and all stakeholders in country have come together to undo the devastating impact of the pandemic, learning from the countries as well as sharing the best practices from India. So, Angelica, I'll stop here with my initial remarks.
Thank you so much, Dr. Lal. We'll come back to you later with more questions. Now we'll go to Mr. Bhatia. Mr. Bhatia, you are the voice of the government here, and we would want you to enlighten all of us on how the government has been dealing with the crisis so far, the federal government, and what is your thoughts on the future?
A very good evening to all and a good morning to all the persons who've joined in the US. For today, I think a discussion on this very relevant topic would have a different dimension, Angelica. Generally, we debate it out on our local channels as well as forums, where we have a lot of disagreements. But today, I am not only the voice of the ruling party, Bharatiya Janata Party, but I would like to be voice of the people of India. And therefore, I would like to put forward the real picture, how India bravely has fought this pandemic and how we have succeeded. And it would not be wrong to state the phrase which is used in India and a principle that we all believe in, Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. That means the world is one. And this pandemic for sure has taught us this lesson that if we are to defeat this pandemic, then we have to behave and act like one family. And I can very proudly today say that India, even with all the differences with the multi-party political structure that we have, BJP and non-BJP ruled states, the regional identities that we all united. And that is why the numbers that I will be placing will be a testimony to the aggressive and very effective fight that our country has put forward. India has a population of 1.3 billion people in comparison to the US, which has a population of 350 million. Now, the number of cases in India so far has been 31 million, and in the US, there have been 36 million. That means the Indian population is almost 4 times the population of the US, but the number of cases are almost the same. We must have done something right, even with our limited resources. And what was right? I think the Prime Minister led from the front. He involved all the chief ministers of the states. And yes, there have been issues regarding how to tackle the problem of COVID. But then as a team, everyone worked together. And the numbers that I will share with you now, the total cases per million in India has been 22,000. In the US, they have been 107,000, almost 5 times. The mortality rate per million in India is 300. And in the US, it has been 1900. Every death due to COVID is sad and is too many. We have to ensure that we are able to save these precious human lives. And I must say at the beginning, how across the globe, countries united. During the first phase, I remember the then US President Donald Trump had approached the Indian government, and Shri Narendra Modi ji provided all assistance to the US government. And just look at with passage of time, how things changed. During the second wave, when we were in need of oxygen concentrators and ventilators, as well as other important medicines, it was the US helping us. And this was all across the globe. So the message is loud and clear that one, all countries have to unite, and that is the only way forward that we can defeat the pandemic. And second, as you rightly said, that every citizen has to be responsible. They have to understand that they have to follow the three golden rules. And in India, I think there have been awareness campaigns that have been launched. Citizens have come out during the second pandemic wave, especially when they utilized every resource that they had. And in the second segment, when we deal regarding the non-state actors coming forward to help the country, I would put forward some examples. But I must say that even during the second pandemic wave, if India could do well and ensure that we are able to save the lives of the citizens, it was only because of the participation of every citizen. And I must take this occasion and platform to salute the doctors, the healthcare workers who were working tirelessly day and night. And they set such a shining example for other citizens that they're leading from the front that others join too. And I think going forward, India is, with each passing day, augmenting its medical infrastructure, its resources, and vaccination being the key, on which I would shed some light in the next segment, since this is my opening statement. I would tell how we have worked on infrastructure, hospitals, medicines, procurement, vaccination, and all these things we feel will ensure that we are able to combat and defeat the next if it comes. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bhatia. I have a couple of follow-up questions, but before we get there, we will hear from the other two speakers who are left. Ms. Priyanka Chaturvedi, we want to hear your opening remarks on also the fact that your party is in the government in the state of Maharashtra. So would you want to share what has been the learnings for your state and how have you moved ahead?
So firstly, a namaskar to everybody who's tuned in to watch from India and the US. Since social distancing is the form, namaskar has become the norm. The things that I wanted to express during my opening comments were about how Maharashtra, which saw the highest amount of caseload in the country, and also saw the new variant, the Delta variant, which we identified in the state, and how we tackled it. The most important thing that our state government did under the leadership of the chief minister, we created a task force, a medical task force, which would ensure that the testing, tracing, and treating was something that became a priority for us. Maintaining transparency of records was the most important factor, and ensuring that whatever we were reporting was not dubious in any way or was not hiding the actual truth on ground. So that was something that we believed strongly in. Of course, we came in for a lot of criticism, but people need to understand. I think people of the state understood that this is a densely populated state. We have a population of over 12 crore people in the state, and it is a very well-connected state, whether we look at through the land route, sea route, or the port route. So we do have a lot of people coming in. So that was another challenge that we had, to maintain transparency. Now, in terms of treatment protocol, we also decided that our treatment protocol would be very decentralized in format, where we will empower all our commissioners and local government to be able to test, treat people and isolate them as well. And that is where perhaps we were identifying more people in terms of treatment protocols and showing higher numbers. Last but not the least was the public-private participation. When we talk about civil society, and I would want to bring across the Dharavi model. Dharavi is one of the most populated slums of Asia. I think the highest density population in Asia. When the first case was reported in Dharavi, I remember the media going gung-ho about how we were sitting on a ticking time bomb and Mumbai is going to explode. But how we managed to control Dharavi is a lesson in itself, is something which will be documented in times to come, in terms of how we identified people, isolated people, and treated people. We also encouraged public and private partnership. How did we encourage civil societies to come forward and help the local governments to be able to cooperate and ensure that there was awareness about social distancing and all the COVID norms? That was part one. In terms of public-private participation, the corporate participation, where we encouraged corporate houses, because Mumbai happens to be the corporate capital of India, we encourage them to come forward and help the government, support the government, considering our infrastructure, medical infrastructure across the country is quite lacking in terms of capacities. So they helped us build capacities. And I think that is something that Maharashtra was able to control. So today, when we see data coming from across the country at times, it does become a little saddening because while other states have underreported in some way, we have managed to keep our records transparent, and we may be accused of higher numbers, but at least we have been honest with how the COVID protocols are managed. And if you look at the history of pandemics, Maharashtra is one of those states which have faced the highest amount of caseloads in, across the century as well. So that is how we're doing. And in terms of vaccination, now that we have a vaccine, and we're proud that India has made its own vaccine, Covaxin is one of them. We have managed to vaccinate a lot of our population. We are the first state in the country which has crossed over 1 crore people who are fully vaccinated. So I'm very certain with vaccination and our treatment protocols in place, we are going to overcome the challenge that the world as well as India faced. We will face it together, and we will face it with scientific protocols in place.
Thank you, Ms. Chaturvedi. I actually wanted to touch upon Dharavi model later on, but thank you for sharing that already. It's remarkable the work that you all have done with Dharavi and the kind of measures that were put in. So congratulations on that. Now we'll move to Professor Rajeev Gowda. You're here as the voice of the opposition party. So what are your thoughts on how the pandemic has been, how the government has responded, and anything? I know that you recently authored a paper, a white paper on how the pandemic should have been handled. So do you want to share your thoughts on that?
In the opening remarks, Angellica, let me restrict myself to just two major themes. One,
Right.
the need to engage realistically to make sure that what we're doing is facing the actual reality. And the second, of course, I'd like to emphasize the economy. And when we talk about reality, recently we had the government responding in Parliament about people, the number of people who died as a result of lack of oxygen in, during the second wave. And the answer was, we don't have any data. The states did not report deaths of that sort. And, frankly, if you just followed the newspapers and the media, you would have been able to gather enough intelligence to be able to say that there was a real crisis there, and people died not just due to COVID, but due to the lack of adequate infrastructure, including oxygen and ICU beds and medical care. Now, so what does that lead to? It leads to engaging with reality in terms of the actual numbers. Now, if you look at the actual estimates out there, various scientists and various epidemiologists and others, experts, are arguing that our death count, right? Maybe states like Maharashtra and Kerala are demonstrating that they're, are reporting a much more accurate death count. In other states, you don't have those kinds of numbers at all. When you are working with data that is inaccurate, then every policy response that emerges will be inaccurate, mistargeted, and inadequate. So these are all issues that we have to pay attention to. And let me sort of move on to the economy itself, because we have very little time for all these interventions. Now, on the economy front, basically think about what the impact has been. Now, the impact to India's economy has been devastating because of the first major lockdown, and of course, the second wave and the consequent more localized lockdowns that we've seen. Now, we've opened up, and we're hoping that we can stay opened up, that demand will pick up, the economy will hum again. But for all this to happen, we need vaccination to proceed at a certain pace. Now, one of our erstwhile ministers, Mr. Javadekar, had announced that every eligible adult in this country would be vaccinated by December 31st. Okay, and some of us have been keeping a daily track of progress towards that grand promise. Okay, now we want to achieve that goal. We all want to achieve that goal. But what has been the performance of the government? It's, if you need, what shall we say, maybe 11 million doses a day, we are only seeing about half of that, okay, in terms of a daily, daily vaccination rollout. if this is going to be the pace, we're not going to be able to vaccinate enough numbers in our population. Overall, the section, we're fewer than double digits in our population who have actually been the recipients of 2 doses, right? So until we build up immunity with more and more people vaccinated, we are going to be facing many more dangers of third and fourth waves, of possibly new variants, and so there's a lot of concern going forward. Now, other dimensions of the economy, who has been hurt, right? If you look at it in terms of jobs, initially it was women, and then now it is urban men. And a lot of these jobs are not coming back. A lot of people have managed to survive based on going back to their villages, urban migrant workers, for example, and surviving on what we call rural employment guarantee work opportunities. But they all would want to come back to cities and explore opportunities to earn more. And it's not clear that we know how to integrate them back and ensure that they are safe. The other dimensions that we tend to ignore are the impact on children, on nutrition levels, on education and access. These are all foundational impacts that are going to have a larger, cause damage over the longer run. So there's a lot that we need to do to remedy that problem. And we are worried about a huge new banking crisis from a lot of businesses who have failed over the last year and a half, and a burgeoning bad loan crisis. And in the midst of this, when the government could have spent a lot more to revive demand and to revive the economy, we have seen more grand announcements and actual expenditures being a fraction of what was actually announced. And instead, at a time when inflation is picking up, at a time when everyone is worried about every single paisa, every single rupee that they can command and save, there's a lot more, there has been a lot more pledging of gold at this time for people, families borrowing money for survival. At a time like this, we see the taxes on fuel, on petroleum and products, basically continuously rising. And this has a very negative impact on the poorest of the poor, who bear the brunt of indirect taxes, inflation, etc. So ultimately, I would like to end by saying, the Supreme Court has reminded the government that the National Disaster Management Act mandates that every family that has lost a person needs to be given a compensation of 4 lakhs. That's 0.4 million rupees. And the government has not risen to that occasion. So there are a lot of people and families, especially in the second wave, which have lost their breadwinners and are facing dire straits. So headline management has been the priority rather than responding to the pain that the people of India have been experiencing.
Thank you, Professor Gaurav. You have made certain points which I feel that Mr. Bhatia would want to refute. Mr. Bhatia, do you want to refute? I'll give you a minute or two.
Absolutely. Thank you, Angelica. See, there are a few things that have been raised by my dear friend Rajiv, and I would like to respond to them one by one. The holistic picture first needs to be taken into account. How has India responded to the pandemic? And the key points that I want to highlight is that it has been the priority of the government that first we have to save human lives and also ensure that people don't lose their livelihoods. So we've seen how there was a timely lockdown, a decision that was very tough for the government, because we all know that there would be migrant laborers, there would be people who need to earn their livelihood. But the government ensured that there is a timely lockdown, ensured that ration was provided to 80 crore, that's like 800 million people in India for a period of 11 months to ensure that they get all the support from the government. And that is one of the largest such exercise anywhere in the world. During the time when the first lockdown was invoked by the government, that time was well utilized to ensure that we work on the bed capacity that the infrastructure, medical infrastructure and health infrastructure has in India. And with that, there has been a timely economic and fiscal package to the tune of 20 lakh crores, which has helped to ensure that the poor are able to get livelihood. There have been beneficial government schemes as well. And I take a lot of pride in the fact that, from all the major decisions that were taken in consultation with the chief ministers of the state, irrespective of which party government there was in the state, to even meeting the doctors, meeting the scientists to ensure that there is a timely rollout of the vaccine, meeting when there was oxygen in short supply during the second pandemic wave, meeting the oxygen producing companies and ensuring that the production of oxygen goes up. And just a number, it's a food for thought, that during the first wave, the need of the country was around 3,000 metric ton per day. And during the second wave, it went up to 9,000 metric ton. But our country responded so well, and we were able to ensure that this oxygen is made available to all states. And there was a constant dialogue between the center and the state. And a very good example, since Priyanka is here, my friend, that there was a call from the Mumbai commissioner. He called the PMO and he said that there is a likelihood of shortage of oxygen supply. And the Mumbai commissioner, when he called the PMO responded within 2 minutes. It was reported widely in many newspapers. And then the oxygen supply was provided to the Mumbaikars, ensuring that we are able to save lives. Second very important point would be vaccination. Let us understand, and there is no mincing of words, that we have a population of 1.3 billion people. And the eligible population, as per the scientific research and the advice that the Prime Minister office is getting, is that around 900 million people would have to be vaccinated to get herd immunity. Now, India has been fastest in terms of vaccinating the citizens, as well as if we look at the number of 450 million people in India have received either one or two jabs. What does it show? It shows the commitment of our leadership to protect the citizens. And let us not forget, as Priyanka had mentioned, that earlier we had seen the general time for vaccine to be discovered or invented would be from 5 to 10 years, even in developed nations like the US. But India, with the caliber of the scientists that we have, was able to achieve this in 1 year's time. I think that is a great achievement. Now, how do we go forward and how do we ensure that there is enough vaccination in the coming months? This number is very crucial, and this number has been placed on the floor of the House by the minister concerned. In the next 4 or 5 months, till December 2021, 45 crores, and that would come to 450 millions for the viewers in the US, have already been given the jab. And another 1.35 billion will be vaccinated in the next 4.5, 5 months. And the total number would come to 1.8 billion. So the entire population, we are hoping, will get vaccinated by the end of the year. And that is no mean feat. For any country, I think they will appreciate the model that we have in India, that the vaccine was produced by India within a short span of 1 year. The highest number of people have been inoculated. And in the next 5 months, this drive will be further strengthened so that we are able to vaccinate the entire adult population. And coupled with the fact, just yesterday's number is 4.5 million. And when we started, it was less than, 0.1 million. So we have come a long way. And yes, there could be many suggestions or things that need to be improved. But I must say that collectively, we are fighting this pandemic very well, and we are very hopeful that we will succeed as a nation.
Thank you, Mr. Bhatia. Now, because you talked about how successful it's, and the numbers you have given us some figures as well regarding the vaccine rollout. I do see some smiles on Priyanka's face, but Priyanka, I'll come to you a little while later. First, let's go to Dr. Arvind Lal. Mr. Bhatia has just shared some figures with us and how the current vaccine rollout is happening. So what are your thoughts on this, and how do you see us going forward in terms of vaccine rollout?
Thank you. The fact of the matter is that without the vaccine rollout, or I would say aggressively taking out the vaccine, there is no way we can survive this. And in India, there are naysayers, and I'm sure everywhere else in the world also. And I would just like to emphasize that in a forum like this, it doesn't matter because everybody would agree. But the point has to be made that in the UK, where the vaccination has touched more than 60 or 65% of its adult population, but they are still witnessing the third wave. Now, these are the complications which also come with the Delta wave or whatever. And cases are going up, but the hospitalization and deaths are not up at the same rate. So compared to from January to July 2021, with the same number of daily cases, which varied between 28,000 to 50,000, the number of hospitalized cases have gone down by 91,000 from 1,000, and daily average deaths have also come down by 98% from 1,200 to 25. So I think, and the opposite example also I would like to give, that in the NCEMA, or National Emergency Crisis Disaster Management Authority in the UAE, has announced that 92% of those admitted to ICU had not been vaccinated, and another 94% of those who had died had not been vaccinated. So now nobody should doubt the role of vaccination. The question is the Indian scenario, and India has administered, as Mr. Pointed out, about 450 million doses. And though this is the second highest in the world, we have covered about 25% of the population with at least one dose, but about 7 to 8% with two doses. And this is another kind of a statistic in which is 80% efficacy of the vaccine with the 70% target of herd immunity. This tantamounts to about 87.5% of India's population, which comes to about 114 crore, or more than 1.3 billion individuals need to be vaccinated. So there is absolutely no doubt about it that whatsoever we may do, but we need to inoculate at least 8.5 million doses every day. And of course, there are 4 vaccines available, and I'm not going to go into all of them in India. And we must expedite the approval of other vaccines and scale up the manufacturing of approved vaccines manifold. And Bharat Biotech, I believe, is lagging behind. So they have to buck up. And I take this as a doctor, I would like to emphasize that we have to rope in any possible partner for vaccination, anybody who can give an intramuscular jab, including hospitals or small hospitals, registered clinics, or doctors, and perhaps all allied healthcare workers. I would like to give here the example of the Dunkirk evacuation during 1939, just before the Second World War, where 350,000 soldiers from Britain, France, and Belgium were marooned in the north of France. And they would have either been dead or been captured by the Germans. But the British government put in anything which could float, literally. So 800 naval vessels, and including those from British families for recreational purposes, were used. So I think in India, irrespective of which part of India, which party you belong to, but I think we have got to do something much more. And we have to, on the media, we see so many other things happening, the advertisements. So we have got to have a blitzkrieg kind of a, thing which, involves every Indian. And I'm certainly worried about the vaccination in the rural areas. So I'd like to stop here. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Lal. In terms of Professor Gowda has mentioned a lot about the economy. So Professor Gowda, coming to you now, I would want to understand how do you see the revival of the economy happening? And have you been, as an opposition party, how has been the cohesion with the government? Is the voice of the opposition being heard when you give suggestions, and any other thoughts that you have? So you're on mute.
Yeah, first I would like to give my friend Gaurav a copy of our white paper on the government's management of COVID. That would open his eyes to the actual reality. For example, the talk about 20 lakh crore relief package. The very next day, every investment bank and every analyst worth his salt basically pointed out that the actual expenditure was less than a tenth of that. Okay, so this is the real challenge. Now, what the economy needs after the unplanned lockdown, after the devastation that's been faced by small businesses and everyone else, it needs a demand injection, a boost to demand, and that comes from putting more money in people's pockets. And that's not what is happening from the government side. What you have is more, some of those measures still have value, of course. For example, saying, look, we'll extend your loan repayment schedule. We won't implement the insolvency and bankruptcy code, requirements right immediately. We will give you extended credit lines. But nobody who is worried about trying to save his or her business is going to go out there and borrow more, right? It would potentially be a suicidal move. So these are sort of the challenges that we're facing there. And then this, when we're talking about people unable to, I mentioned to you that a lot of households have seen a real drop in terms of their food consumption, in terms of their nutrition intake. All of these need to be overcome. Yes, of course, the government has, provided food rations, but much more needs to be done. And it's possible. We have huge amounts of stocks in our godowns of wheat and rice and pulses and everything else that's required for a much more well-planned nutritional intervention. So all of those activities absolutely need to be revived. But more than that, lowering taxes is one way in which you could actually leave more money in people's hands. Instead, inflation has gone way beyond the band that the Reserve Bank of India considers to be appropriate, and this is mostly due to the indirect taxes, because if everything costs more, fuel and the follow-on implications across the economy, this is just going to hurt the poor a lot more. And you will see that in terms of the economic numbers, you'll see that the number of people even in the workforce has come down. Basically, it means that people are discouraged. People are saying, we're not even looking for jobs. We're not able to get anything at all. And as I reiterate, that 4 lakh rupees per family as compensation would go a long way in terms of helping families.
So let me check, because tweets
Hold
should
on.
have been only to the extent of, like we do for Diplomacy Unplugged, that so-and-so was with us, was having a town hall and all that stuff, but
Mr.
not really
Singhal,
the statements made by
please
them.
mute yourself. Mr. Singhal, please mute yourself.
I
Sir.
just
Okay, I'm sorry. I thought we were getting
Sorry.
into.
Sorry about that, sir. Sorry.
I thought
no,
we
no,
were
but
getting.
this is the first thing I explained to Sushma on Monday. Let me, when she joined back, I said I shared with her all the details.
Yeah,
And
let
I
me.
said,
You can mute him.
if you are still in doubt, I told her, I said, also please send your approach to this thing.
Angelica,
And
whoever
I
is the
told her, I
admin
said,
can mute
tweets
him.
will be only to the
I don't think
extent
he
that, okay,
realizes he's not muted.
Peter, would you please mute him? Thank you. Sorry about that. Really sorry. Professor Gaura, you were in the middle of your remarks. Yeah.
Yeah, no. This is the story of what's happening to the opposition's voice in in current day India. So our voice gets muted, our demands don't get met and heard, and certainly we are not seeing the kind of response to our constructive suggestions, our willingness to ensure that that the nation as a whole heals and moves back into the world of work and the economy once again. So basically, we have some real challenges. The government has not frankly responded to them, has focused on headlines which don't match the reality, and has ignored the damage done to the poorest of the poor and the families that have lost their lives and livelihoods.
Professor Gaurav, we're sorry for that interruption in between. We, ACYPL and FICCI have no desire to mute the voice of the opposition. That's why you're here. Please don't take it in that way. So now we'll go to Priyanka Chaturvedi. And Priyanka, I wanted to ask, what is the priorities? What are the priority areas for the state government in Maharashtra? And considering the fact that the federal government is by the BJP, which is a rival party of yours, or sort of, how has been the cohesive response? And I mean, were you able to come to a cohesive response? Has the federal government been supportive of the measures being taken up by the state government? Please share your thoughts on that.
So firstly, our chief minister was very categorical when ever since the pandemic response and we've witnessed the first case of COVID in Maharashtra, that we will not be in a confrontational mode with the center. We will cooperate with the center and we expect the same. However, because even this panel does not deserve any us versus them, because it's a collective responsibility that we need to be fighting together. But there are some challenges which we also spoke to with the central government, and we were dismissed at times, like when we spoke about the vaccine shortage. And I remember when our chief minister wrote to the prime minister and my letter to the health minister saying that there is a vaccine shortage because at the rate at which we were vaccinating, we were not getting the supplies adequately. And we also realized one thing after engaging with a lot of corporate houses, that they said that 50% of Maharashtra's population is below 45 years of age. So we need to open up vaccination for us to be able to resume economic activity. But the response was very cold and the response was very political in nature, which again could have been better handled by the center. There are a few challenges which I really think need to be addressed by the center. And I don't see it from the perspective of confrontation. I speak from the position of cooperation. I personally feel the vaccination rollout was not as expected and what the country expected. We had the prime minister visiting those centers which were manufacturing these vaccines, but we only got to know when the vaccine shortage was revealed, that the orders that we placed, the stockpile that we had was almost non-existent. At the same time, I'm impressed with the fact that Gaurav Bhatia brought in Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, which is that world is one big family. And we all live by that principle, not a new principle. It's part of our civilizational history. But even in that, what we could have prioritized is how we are sending across these vaccines to international countries. Now, what has happened is we've sent the first dose. We have not been able to send the second dose to our neighboring countries, which depended on us. So that is an issue. We could have planned that better, the rollout better. Now, I quite agree with what Dr. Lal was saying in terms of the aggression in vaccination should be seen. It cannot become a one-day event like we saw on June 21st. I had also proposed that the Compulsory Licensing Act can be invoked on the Covaxin, and we can hand over the production to a couple of such pharmaceutical companies which are well equipped to handle a challenge like this. It also spoken about how emergency use approval should be given to various vaccines which are from overseas, and also how we can remove GST on vaccines, because that is turning out to be a little expensive for everyone, someone who's paying out of their pocket on priority. Some issues such as pregnant women coming into the ambit of vaccination was something I raised and I feel strongly about. There is a huge gender gap. When we talk about economic consequences of women, there's also vaccination gender gap that we are seeing that I'm trying to address through our state government. Our state government is emphasizing that women should be able to find a vaccination center close to their homes. Last not the least is something about the third wave that I wanted to touch upon. Maharashtra is the only government which has been talking about an impending third wave, and the only way to control third wave and the challenges that come along with it is to vaccinate higher numbers. We've also spoken about how children below 18 years of age could be susceptible to the virus. UK data categorically shows that 1 in 200 children have found the need to be hospitalized. So we need to be prepared. How are we preparing? We have set up NICUs, we've set up ICUs, all our COVID care centers, the field hospitals that have come up have places where children can be treated. and their parents, if they are like really young, their parents can also stay along with them. So we are being very, I would say, sensitive and understanding of the issue at hand. And if there is a third wave, God forbid if there is a third wave, if we do not vaccinate enough numbers, then we should be able to be prepared rather than having an apology note. Last, if I can just make one last point, Gaurav Bhatia ji made a very interesting point about how the Mumbai Municipal Commissioner had called up the PMO. He actually did not call up the PMO. He had called up the Health Secretary. And the Health Secretary was just informed that there, in case of shortage, which thankfully Mumbai did not face, but other states in the country did face. Maharashtra did not face because we were better planned about it. We had done our oxygen audits, and Supreme Court had spoken about it. Supreme Court had said that not just the center, even the Delhi government should be following the Maharashtra model, the Mumbai model of oxygen. So yes, we continue to look for cooperation, not confrontation. And in the same spirit, we'll continue working and giving our suggestions to the center, hoping whether it's economic consequences, whether it's the pandemic impact, whether it's the vaccination, we will continue to give constructive suggestions.
Thank you, Ms. Chaturvedi. Mr. Gaurav Bhatia, if you want to respond to any of the comments that were made by anyone, please feel free to do so. But I also have a follow-up question here. This is about how the government is planning to, because a lot of women are out of the workforce. Livelihoods even of urban men are now reduced. Livelihoods are reducing. So how does the government look at in terms of economic revival?
Thank you, Angelica. I think so far it has been a very constructive discussion, but I would definitely like to counter a few points that have been made by Rajeev ji and Priyanka ji.
But very quickly, because we are always out of time and we don't have much time, so as short and crisp as possible.
I will try to be very crisp without leveling any allegations. Thank you. See, first of all, it's not about headline management. I think the Prime Minister of the country has been praised by the World Health Organization. He's been thanked by countries like the US, UK, and other countries also. And I must say there has been a lot of reciprocation from other countries. It's not about headline management. And why do I say that? Rajeev ji must know that when the COVID pandemic hit our country in the year of 2020 March, the studies suggest that the unemployment rate went up to almost 20 to 25% within a short span of 1 year. And I have the latest numbers from the same agency. The unemployment rate has come down to 6.5%. What does it show? It's a determined government which is ensuring that there is employment for everyone. And yes, I think we need to take care of the marginalized, the women that you were talking about, and there are many steps that have been taken in that direction. And you shed some light if you permit me to. Second, about the vaccine shortage that Priyanka was speaking about, let me just place a fact. How the central government has been very cooperative and there has been no discrimination on the basis of BJP or non-BJP ruled states. Because Uttar Pradesh is the most populous state in the country. It has the largest population of 230 million people. And the vaccination drive there has ensured that around 450 million citizens in Uttar Pradesh have been inoculated. Now in Maharashtra, the population is half of Uttar Pradesh, but the inoculation has been almost the same, 430 million. So I would say this goes a long way to show that the central government was providing all possible assistance to every state. And we can have a very lengthy discussions on the shortcomings, what didn't go well. But then at this juncture, I would say to fight the pandemic, we need to be united. One more point that I would like to, just place the facts. Rajeev Gowda ji spoke about inflation. The inflation rate, if you are trying to create liquidity through more funds in the economy so that there is an economic revival, might lead to a temporary phase of more inflation. But it is still, at half the rate of what it used to be during the Congress regimes. So I think right now, giving a push to the economy, making it robust is important. And in the end, just one more, point I would like to make on economic recovery. the numbers that have come in, Angellica, are very encouraging. There has been a recovery. High value sectors have shipped more than 47% more exports in the month of June. The GST collection has again gained momentum and has gone up to 100,000 crore each month. And I must say that there was a section which I would touch briefly, was the role of the non-state actors. That's a very vital role. And we are proud of the fact that when PM CARES was introduced, the corporates came out and they donated very generously. And that was utilized to procure ventilators, to ensure that orphans that have lost their parents during the COVID are provided with education, with support from the government. And this money was also utilized to ensure that vaccines can be procured and advance payments can be made to the companies that are actually producing the vaccines. And the best part was that there was no division of identity, be it regional or religion. There were langars being sponsored by, gurdwaras, temples, the mosque. And I think that is the beauty of our country, that when there is, a crisis situation, when there is a pandemic, everyone unites. And yes, we might have a set of differences, but I believe that everyone contributed best to their ability. And that is the reason India stands strong today under the leadership of Narendra Modi.
Thank you, Mr. Bhatia. You mentioned PM CARES, and that is a Pandora's box in itself, which we don't have the time to open today.
We can have another discussion on that.
Yeah, absolutely. We are gonna, because we are just 2 minutes left, so we're gonna take a little more time. So I'm gonna give all the panelists a chance for 2 minutes each to finally let us know their thoughts on, we have discussed a wide range of subjects. I've also incorporated some of the audience questions into my questions. But overall, what do you think we should be doing now? In terms of the private health sector, Dr. Lal, would you want to shed some lights, and that would be your final thoughts, final remarks?
I think the private health sector has risen to the occasion admirably, and considering the fact which is known to everybody, that 70% of all OPD patients in India are looked at by the private sector, about 60+% of the IPD patients. So it is, not stated at all that for example, in testing, this is a pandemic in which you cannot do without testing. And here the Indian labs came up to the occasion, they rose to the occasion. And at the beginning of the pandemic, there was just one government lab testing this. And today we have nearly 1,500 RT-PCR labs, out of which 60% are private labs. And even people like us have crossed these tests in millions. So I would like to emphasize one more thing now, and which is, which we have picked up as medical people, that there is a talk of providing rapid antigen tests. We are no lovers of rapid antigen tests, let me tell you, because they were proved to be very, insensitive or inaccurate, I should say. But times have changed. I believe now the sensitivity has risen, and so has its specificity. And according to the T.H. Chan Public Health School in Harvard University, they are advocating home testing, self-testing, and they are even saying it should be done every day. So for India, the lesson is that how do we take this testing? We hope that there's no third wave, but if there is, well, this is going to be the bedrock of the testing. And we'll have to go into the villages, into the tier 3, tier 4 towns, rural areas, whatever. And this rapid antigen test, I think, has come of age. And we can, probably think about it in a big way. And I must emphasize that we were the first naysayers for the rapid antigen test, but things have improved. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Lal. We'll go to Ms. Chaturvedi, and then Professor Gowda, and then we'll end with Mr. Bhatia.
So all I'd like to tell everyone who's joined into this panel discussion and this town hall is that we are still not out of the pandemic, and life cannot resume as normal as much as we want it. Yes, it is frustrating to have children at home who want to go to school, but they are not being allowed to go to school. But what is very important, and I think what Dr. Lal said about testing being the bedrock of being able to control and understand the pandemic and its third wave, also we would need to vaccinate at a larger pace, at a higher pace. And if for that, if we need to import vaccines, we need to enhance our manufacturing capabilities, we would need to put all hands on deck to be able to ensure that the government, the central government, considering it's a epidemic act is in place and disaster management act is in place, would have to show a larger role and more large-heartedness to ideas and suggestions and requests coming from the state government, and not making this a state versus state in a country which cannot afford to do that. So get vaccinated and get yourself tested as well.
Thank you, Ms. Chaturvedi. Professor Rajeev Gowda.
Yes, we are actually meeting and discussing this issue in between possibly the second and third wave. And it's important, just like in between the first and second wave, we should not be complacent. We should not be overtaken by hubris. We need to put in place the measures, just like my friend Priyanka just mentioned, find ways to enhance the vaccine availability and increase the rollout such that we come somewhere close to the grand targets that we're bandied about. The second thing is, the Prime Minister is a very effective communicator. And one of the things that we need to see more of is communication about maintaining COVID protocols and ensuring that we don't ignore what we've already been through, and that we mask up, that we be careful about social distancing, that we take every measure possible to prevent infections from worsening. The way things are not that exciting for us because there are more variants that are possible. There are worries about children being more affected in the future. But I hope that the government and state governments and everyone are putting in place the measures to be able to respond in terms of personnel and infrastructure where such a crisis to hit us again. But otherwise, when it comes to taking care of those who have been massively hurt by this whole exercise, including the larger economy, I think the government needs to do so much more, and it has the capacity to do so. It does not need to squeeze the life out of people with exorbitant fuel taxes. And basically, I can only sum up by saying, I hope my friend Gaurav's fantasies come true, and all those idealistic scenarios that he talks about actually turn out to be reality, and we are able to combat this in one as one large family. So I just hope and pray that we all achieve some kind of immunity and work our way out of this crisis.
Thank you, Professor Gowda. Mr. Bhatia.
Thank you. I would like to thank everyone. It has been a fascinating discussion so far, very different from the daily debates that we have on Indian television, and a very constructive one too. And what Dr. Lal said, I would like to take it forward, that there has been a very significant and positive role of the government. But with that, we also need to appreciate the role of the private sector, be it in the health industry or otherwise, because without their commitment, resolve, and participation, India would not have fared so well. And I think we are preparing very well for the next wave, God forbid, if it hits our country. And the process is on augmenting beds, having more of oxygen supply. Vaccine is the key, and I've already placed the numbers, so I will not like to get into that. And to Rajiv ji, I would say there are no fantasies. There is only hard work, and all the missions that we have and the milestones that we have to achieve together, Dr. Rajiv. And today's endeavor was to speak as one voice, one country. And that is why the shortcomings of other states I did not touch upon, because it does not help our fight against a pandemic. It rather weakens our fight. And yes, one assurance I can surely give to the Shiv Sena as well as the Congress, that it will never be center versus state. It will always be India versus COVID, and India is going to emerge victorious. And the biggest testimony to the statement that I'm making is that Narendra Modi ji has been praised by Uddhav Thackeray ji, the Chief Minister of Maharashtra, Mr. Patnaik, the Chief Minister of Odisha, Arvind Kejriwal ji, the Chief Minister of Delhi, as well as Sharad Pawar ji, who's a tall leader in India. So what does it shows? It clearly reveals that when it comes to tackling the COVID problem, center has always extended its hand to the state governments, and that is the only way forward. Just like our meaningful and constructive discussion that we had there, I am hoping that we can have a similar positive and constructive discussion within the parliament also.
Thank you,
Thank
Mr. Bhatia. I and a lot of Indians like myself who are citizens of the country really hope that there is no center and state crisis. All of you work together hand in hand. All we should be praying is there is no third wave, but even if there is, we should not be at the mercy of the virus. We should be working together towards combating it, and that is what we want both the state governments as well as the central government to do. With that, we're going to wrap up today's session. Thank you so much to all the esteemed panelists who have joined in. Thank you so much to the viewers who are watching us on Facebook and who have joined this conversation here on Zoom. It's been a wonderful conversation. I am sure there were a lot of takeaways as well. And there are a lot of learnings that we need to apply, especially the governments who are in power. Let's not be caught off guard again by another wave. So let's keeping that in mind, thank you so much everyone for joining in from ACYPL and from FICCI Forum of Parliamentarians. We will see you next time. Bye.
you.
Thank you.